Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in again to the Dare Champions podcast. You are in for a treat tonight or whenever you choose to watch this video. First of all, thank you so much for all of your support for the first season. That's basically still airing of the Dare Champion podcast, teaching people and just really having conversations about thinking outside the box, thinking about generational thinking, generational health, generational wealth. We've spoken to educators, pastors, just influencers. We've spoken to so many people, business people, and you'll see that throughout this podcast that there are so many underlying themes and recurring themes all throughout the podcast. So today, I want to introduce to you, just a man who needs no introduction, but you all already know me. I'm Dr. Roch Herold, but this man, pastor, father, grandfather as well. How many grandkids?
Right. 2 granddaughters.
2 granddaughters. Oh, man. I mean, he got the shotgun in the back already waiting.
You got it.
Right? So, veteran of, 20 years?
20 years.
Which branch of the service?
I'm Marine Corps.
Marine Corps. Well, thank you for your service.
Now, Marine Corps was only about 10 years.
Okay.
20 years veteran in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Man, thank you so much for your service.
Yeah.
And then from there, award-winning author, where we're going to get into his book much further today. Leader, pillar in the community. He's very well known. We're filming this in Harford County, Maryland, and this man is very well known to be a leader who's conscious about social justice, healthy living, building multi-ethnic congregations. He's well versed. Even I was looking into your bio. You're well versed even in like labor relations and things along that line. So, I mean, author of the phenomenal book, as you see over here, titled Reimagining Discipleship, Building a Legacy. The great Reverend Dr. Marlon B. Tilghman. Kev, hit the applaud button. Oh, he don't got that one. All right. But either way, sir, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service, in the armed forces. Thank you for your service in the community. I've been seeing what you've been doing. You've been doing so much between here, Annapolis, and just all throughout the broader community. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
My first question is, when do you sleep? Since you got, you do all these things.
How do you spell that?
So, I'm really looking forward to today's discussion because, we're going to focus on generational thinking in regards to finance, health, and even the church, right? Because I think that's your book. That's the target audience, I believe, is for the church. And we'll talk about that. But before we get into the book, just tell me more about, your childhood. I always like getting into the psyche of who's sitting here so the viewers can know. What was it about your upbringing? What was it about your childhood? What values were instilled in you that made you the community leader you are today? Okay.
In seminary, we had to do, as part of my doctoral work, you had to identify where you fall in line as far as your siblings. And so the first question asked was, who's the oldest? I raised my hand.
Okay.
And then he said, who's the youngest? I raised my hand again. And he says, who's in the middle? I've raised my hand a third time. Yeah. I'm the only child. So I fit all 3 categories. As the only child, I was spoiled, bro.
Oh, man.
Spoiled to
nice.
To the 9. Oh, yes, it was.
Man, must be nice.
But I was able to be blessed with going down to the Eastern Shore during the summers to stay with my cousins.
Nice.
And while I was down there, I learned the value of sharing. Because as an only child, you had everything. So I stayed down there with 4 of my male cousins, 2 of my female cousins. My uncle and aunt stayed in one room, the girls stayed in another room, and the 5 of us stayed in the other room.
I know that's right.
And this was in the 70s, Doc.
Oh,
and literally, they had an outhouse, sump pump, not a sump pump, a pump outside, no running water inside.
Yeah.
And you took a bath in a basin. This is in the 70s. I'm like, where the hell am I? Why are they punishing me? But in actuality, I learned the value of appreciating things.
Wow.
Right? Because for as an only child, I had everything.
Yeah.
But now I'm learning what value is. I'm learning. Matter of fact, I even learned what day laboring was like because when I lived down there, we picked cucumbers, watermelon, and we toted hay to make our salary for that day alone.
Wow.
And then a little bit for the weekends when we hung out.
Wow.
And so I literally learned about the appreciation for what I have and that what scarcity looks like. And I always wanted to be in a place where I understood that there before the grace of God go I. And so I use that as a way of developing what came out. This book was this appreciation for legacy giving and legacy wealth, because we always want to have at least enough money to be able to produce things that we need in as we move forward in life, but more importantly, have something set aside in times of scarcity. COVID-19 flipped us all upside down, right? No one thought that it would cripple us the way it did, and that we would get a lens into what healthcare looked like, particularly in the Black community. And we, particularly the Black church, suffered the most because, as the phrase goes, well, when they get a cough, we get the flu. Because we simply have not gone back to the traditions of our history, which we can talk about as it relates to generational wealth in the Black community.
Wow.
So that's where it all comes. It comes from parents who knew that I needed to understand what I had, as well as me appreciating what I need to share with my fellow brothers and sisters.
Man, and I like how you said, you know what scarcity looks like, because I mean, I think even with me, I felt that as well. My parents, they immigrated from Haiti, and first generation American, but we shared everything. My brother and I chose a separate high school just because we wore the same clothes. So I didn't want people to say, oh, did your brother wear that shirt yesterday, right? Jerry, sorry, I'm telling all our secrets. But yeah, I mean, I teased everybody and say, look, we shared everything, but the undies,
I heard that.
But I was like, look, I need my own right here. But, even just in the title, and I'm going to get into the book cover in a second, but just talk about how the first word you decided to, you could have titled this book anything, but you said reimagine.
Yeah.
Why is it, speak on that.
Okay. So the Black church, the Black community, because the two are synonymous. You can't have one without the other, as research shows us. Has had a history of philanthropy. Maybe not necessarily from philanthropy from the standpoint of just money by itself, but we always had this concept of family. We've always had this concept of family. And what we need to do is get back to what that family looks like from an economic standpoint, how we spend our money. And one of the studies I had that came out of my book, in 2022, the Black community had $1.2 trillion in buying power. Yet we only make up 4% of the income in the United States. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And so I use the word reimagining because we used to, like Black Wall Street, which everyone knows about now, come together as a community to build our own wealth. Due to segregation, we had no choice, right? But by the same token, we did this because we knew that we wanted to build universities, build hospitals, and educate our communities, because we knew that was the way that we were going to survive and thrive. Turns out, over time, through desegregation, and it just happened the way it did. We started to get into that ideology that the white man's ice is cold. You ever heard that phrase before? When you go to Mama May, why are you buying ice from such and such shop? Says, well, his ice is cold.
That was an old adage in the community.
The ice is cold. No, the ice ain't cold. Your concept is that way. And so if we reimagine what we used to be and what we can be, then we can look at discipleship in a new way. Wow,
that's amazing. That's powerful. That's powerful. So in the book, and even like the imagery that you used, I was even, amazed that, the title, it's Reimagining Discipleship, right? But even if we get into the imagery that you used, it, basically, as you're looking at the cover, it's almost like, a bar graph where it's going upwards, and you've got people on top. One looks like he's, just getting in the fight and he's got a backpack, he's climbing. Another one looks like he's scaling the wall. The one on top looks like he's looking back, saying, you can make it.
That's it.
So I did catch that. It's the one on top. And then there's a dichotomy in the book, right? Because you see people rising on one hand, but yet you see money burning, and not just a dollar bill. It's a $100 bill. Yeah, that's a Benjamin right there. That's a whole lot. So explain the dichotomy of just the imagery in the book cover for me, because I wanted you to.
So we are the number one consumer in this country. We buy everything, and some of it ain't worth nothing. We just burning money.
Wow.
We burning money, right? On cars that depreciate. And no offense to anybody that rents, but you need to stop renting because you're paying someone else to get rich. You need to have your own property as soon as you can.
Have that goal to have their own.
Exactly. Have that goal to have your own. Because at the end of the day, the one thing we can definitely count on always existing in this country is real estate. Right? And so we burn money on things like food, products, and things of that nature, but we rarely invest in those things that will last, that will happen over generations. And so that's what I meant by burning $100 bill, because we're wasting our money when we could be investing it. As a matter of fact, I even put it in my introduction to my book. Matter of fact, if you read the introduction to my book and it doesn't inspire you to read the rest of the book, I did a horrible job. Because in the book I said, I can show you how you can eat your cake and eat it too.
Wow.
I mean, how many times have you heard that?
Can't have your cake and eat it too.
In this book, I'll show you how you can eat your cake and have it too. Because at the end of the day, what I'm showing you is that investing is not only a byproduct of your discipline and understanding of what the value of money means. It's also saying that you're placing trust in that higher power that drives you anyway.
Wow.
Right? And so if you learn how to invest, I can show you how over time your money can work for you instead of you always working for it.
Wow.
And that's the concept.
Wow. And that's where you just started with just the reimagine, because you've got to think outside the box of what you're normally doing or what you're normally accustomed to doing. And I mean, like I said, it's the same thing with the Dare in Dare to Live Well, because I've worked with some of the toughest patients that I've had to work with were those that were constantly in here thinking that they were always going to be in pain, or that nothing was ever going to happen, or that they always had to live on medication, right? Just like somebody else's ice is colder, this medication is always better, right? And I'm saying, hey, look, well, if we did, 1, 2, and 3, we could probably get you off of this medication. Well, this medication is better. This ice is colder, right? And it's that adage, it's that same kind of mentality where a lot of people sometimes can get stuck in a certain mindset. And, the worst things that I've seen was people think themselves into a lifetime of just misery and pain and discomfort and passing that on to their not just children but even friends and family and you need to take this, or you need to do this, or and just going down this wrong. It's almost like just like that bar graph is going up. It's like I've been seeing the bar graph go down in terms of health. Because you talk about discipleship, most people when they think about discipleship, they're thinking of didn't Jesus say take no script and go 2 by 2. If they don't receive you, wipe the dust off your clothes and keep on going, just live on donations, right? Like, isn't that other people's theology? Like, explain to us or help us reimagine discipleship in a lens of financial literacy and legacy.
So the word disciple, basic term, simply means student. Means student, right? And you can learn from scripture what it means to develop generational wealth. The text that I used, the primary text I used in the book was, the good leave an inheritance to their children's children.
Children's children, Proverbs.
Right? So Proverbs 13, 21 and 22. And so at the end of the day, what I was able to discern was that when you look at that term children, it's not just your children, but it's anyone that you identify as part of your family. Right? I mean, if you look at the word children, it's anybody you identify as part of your family. And so because we have a history of family as the black church in the black community, the moment you identify someone that you want to impact in their lives, you will see them as pouring into value. What was the United Negro College Fund? I am your dividend. You remember that phrase? We need to continue to use that same type of ideology as it relates to our communities. But this word discipleship is just that. Discipleship is teaching people a new way of looking at what biblically God is saying to us about inheritance, what God is saying about wealth, what God is saying about prosperity. I'm not talking about prosperity gospel. I'm talking about the prosperity that says that everyone is being lifted up. And I'm not looking out for me, but I'm looking out for the generation behind.
And that's amazing when you say that, because I mean, even when I was a child, and for some reason, I'm sure in some communities they still have a remnant of this, but it almost seems like there was a better sense of community, no matter who was on your block. Like, if somebody else was cutting up, and the neighbor saw you, then you knew that's almost like your parents saw you. Like, oh man.
Exactly.
Now, it's just like it says, it takes a community to raise a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise up a child, and we've lost that in some way. And that was the community or the village practicing discipleship. As what you're saying. That's powerful.
So
that's powerful.
Let me piggyback off that, because this falls into where I do things in advocacy. The reason why our communities aren't doing that as much as they used to is because now we fear our children. And we fear our children because the media is telling us to fear them.
Wow.
I mean, what you're saying right now is nothing but the 1990s roll back again. Where they're teaching us, they're telling us that our children are villains. All they want to do is carjack. All they do is they want to hurt and they want to harm. Media is telling us this. When statistically, the data is showing, facts are showing that crime is actually going down amongst young people. It's actually going down amongst young people. But they need to flip that narrative in order for us to fear our children. We fear our children, we won't invest in them. But at the end of the day, if we aren't advocating for them, why bother even existing, in my opinion? We gotta advocate for our children. We gotta ask them that question: what makes you who you want to be? I know that there's a God in you, there's a spirit in you that is essential.
That's it.
I believe it's in you. I need you to see it in you. And the moment we can flip that, again, discipleship and pouring into people in a way that they can see themselves as being the value that God's Son died for them. Then they can then begin to respect themselves and respect one another. And we can get back to being community again.
Man, and it's crazy because I work with a lot of teachers that are, very stressed out, whether it's in the county or even in the city. And, I'll see, just hear, there's the stories up, there was this many fights today, there was this going on. And it's not just in our community, but you can just tell that it's more of a socioeconomic thing as well.
Big time.
But, you'll see that a lot of times there's this sense of people just kind of giving up on the next generation. And it's funny because, even in our church, this month we've been talking about revival. And it's something about revival where God has, He's given us the power to speak life into other people. God has given us the power to speak life into situations, into others, into children. But we've lost that power. We've lost that sense of being able to, lift somebody up and at least encourage them and bring these people in as our children, right? So, and not just, that's their children. But if the larger community, not just if the large community, like everybody said, hey, look, these are our kids. It's not because these kids are black or these kids are Hispanic or whatever. These are our children. These are our children. Speaking inclusively. What are we going to do to speak life into them and things of that nature? Because once you think something has died, you're not inclined to speak life into something. If there was a dead horse right here or something like that in our minds, we think, okay, well, there's no sense in beating a dead horse, right? So we've got to reimagine and see, okay, well, if these are our children, what can we do to change the situation and do it from a lens of discipleship? So
I'm gonna piggyback off this man right here. Let me tell you something about him. I'll never forget we had a conversation. And it's just going to tie it all back together. And feel free to edit this out if you don't want anybody to know what you told me.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
He said to me, we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a sick care system in this country. And what that means is we're so busy diagnosing the symptoms,
the problems
that we're not offering solutions for the symptoms. I'll never forget that from you. I never forget that from you.
That's what I said.
That's what he said. And that's, we're doing the same thing with our children.
Yeah.
We're doing the same thing with our children. Case in point, I'll never forget a doctor I've been seeing for a few years, right in Hartford County. I told him I was having some difficulty with some pain I was having.
Yep.
Now, this guy's been my doctor for a few years.
Okay.
Out of his mouth, without even looking at him, he says, well, are you diabetic?
Okay.
And do you have high blood pressure? And I'm looking at him like, and I said this to him, are you saying this because I'm black? I said, because you've been my doctor. You know my child. Why are you asking me these questions? Right? Right? So in his mind, he's looking at it from that standpoint because of what I look like.
Wow.
Right? At the end of the day, you can't judge anybody. By book. Well, this one you can judge the book by its cover. But you can gauge how someone feels about you by the fact that whether they have empathy or sympathy.
Yes.
Right. Those are two different words. Right. But I appreciate your ministry, your vocation right now, because you're trying to educate us about our health. And sometimes we get so caught up on. Matter of fact, I'll never forget how doctors will ask you about, and they still do it and have some legitimacy, but if you're going to base my health based on my parents' health, are you really diagnosing me, or are you making assumptions based upon my parents as to what my health is? Right? Because I've known you can break a generational curse in obesity, you can generational curse in blood pressure, simply by the way you eat. And you talk. Simply by the way you eat, you can break that curse. It's not about matter of fact, this is scripture. It's not about what you put in your mouth, but what comes out of your mouth that will change you. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Because the power of life and death.
Bingo.
Is in the tongue.
Is in the tongue.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have to have healthcare professionals, we have to have teachers, we have to have ministers, we have to have community leaders that are speaking life through the mouth, right, into the community if we want to revive it. And we got to do that healthcare. We have to do that with leaving a financial legacy and things of that nature. And I mean, you know, it's amazing that you brought that up because it ties in. It ties in. Like, you know, we're just being overprescribed and we're just constantly being led down a certain way as if we already have diabetes and as if we already have hypertension. And then if we have it, then we're going down this path and not even being offered any of the natural solutions. And we're not even being offered any of, well, what are the other solutions? Well, maybe my grandfather and great-grandfather had it because they weren't offered better solutions. Did we think about it that way as well? So, wow, that's amazing that you brought that up. Man, that's amazing. So break down the concepts for me, because in the book, and if you open up the book and you look at the tables of contents, it talks about concepts of faith, facts, freedom,
fear.
Fear, which is an acronym. You can kind of get into that. And then as it relates to building a strong financial discipleship.